Today's been a great day. I'll tell you what is always conflicting for me. Night 3 of camp. We're at night 3 already. That's what's conflicting for me. And here's what it is. It's like you kind of feel like just when you're getting in the role of being at camp, it's like, holy crap, tomorrow it ends. You know what I'm saying? Don't say that. We're not going to pretend that yet. We'll embrace that tomorrow. We'll go through therapy together next week. Yeah, we'll deal with it next week, okay? But, man, I'm so excited for tonight. And here's my question. Are you ready? Ready? Serious question. Right here, serious question. You excited for the word? That's what I'm talking about. Ruth chapter 3. Ruth chapter 3, let's get it. Ruth chapter 3. Gosh, can I brag on you real quick? Do you like being bragged on? Dude, I was sitting back there with Ryan, and I was sitting back there listening, and I looked at him, and should I spoil it for him? Well, some of them already know. That song, we're recording it. And we're like in here. And so we'll be putting it out soon. And so these are microphones right here. So we hear you guys in it, not just us. So I'm sitting back there with Ryan, and I lean over to him, and I said, dude, are these microphones like emitting sound out of these speakers? And he looked at me, he's like, he lowered them on the soundboard, and he's like, nope, that is all them. And dude, that music gets loud, and I could hear y'all singing almost as loud as Jeb. That was unreal. How y'all heard the click, or how y'all keep hearing the click, I have no idea. Is it impossible? Dude, y'all are belting it, and it's freaking awesome. It's so good. Ruth chapter 3. I've loved, and this is a perfect segue for tonight. This is so good. I've had so many awkward moment requests given for me today. Again, I'm not sure what that says about our youth group. Maybe we're not the coolest people ever, but we love each other and we love Jesus, and so it's all good, right? But how many of you've learned already in life, however old you are, you've learned that life is full of awkward moments? Some of you are like, bro, go to awkward in the dictionary and my picture is there, right? Awkward's my, like Naomi changed her name to Mara, changed my name to Awkward, right? That's who I am. We're about to encounter an awkward moment tonight, okay? In Ruth chapter 3, we're gonna kick it off with kind of an awkward moment because how many of you, I was trying to think of kind of the most top 10 awkward things I dealt with as a high schooler, right? Top 10 awkward things I ever experienced when I was in high school. And I think one that might not be number one, but it's pretty close on that list is having to undergo your mom trying to set you up with someone. Anyone ever been there? Been there? Yeah. And here's what's so funny. I know Jan Kinley's gonna watch this later because she's the bomb and supports everything I do still to this day. So I know full well she's gonna watch this. But it was almost like your parents break every rule they tell you when it comes to who you should date, right? Because it's like you meet a person one time with your mom, right? Like you know them from school, you know them from sports, you know them something, and then your mom meets them like one meeting, like one interaction, and you walk away, it's like, that girl was fantastic, Justin. Has anyone else undergone this? Anyway, there was a girl in my high school named Alicia, and my mom was convinced that Alicia was someone I should pursue, and Alicia was nice. She was a pretty girl, but guess what? She wasn't it for me, man. Like, just not. And I tried to tell Mom, I'm like, Mom, like, no, because it's awkward and it's weird when your mom tries to play matchmaker. You agree? Here's why I say that. Because we're about to watch Naomi, Ruth's mother-in-law, play a little matchmaker. That's what we're about to see. But because remember, Ruth and Naomi have come back together. Do you remember what country Naomi and her family fled to? Moab, right? Why did they flee there? There was famine in the land, right? Who died there? Remember Naomi's husband's name? Elimelech died, and then do you remember Naomi? I keep on saying Ruth. Naomi's 2 sons' name? It's kind of hard to say. Melon and Kilon, something how you say it, right? Her sons died, right? And so they come back to where? Bethlehem. Do you remember why they came back? Because food, right? The Bible says that the Lord visited the land, right? So they're back, and then whose field did Ruth start gleaning in last night? Boaz, there you go. You know that name, right? She starts gleaning Boaz's field, and do you remember at the very end of the chapter when Ruth tells Naomi whose field she was in, why does Naomi get so excited? He's a kinsman redeemer, right? He's a redeemer. So Ruth, or Naomi, hears this. She's like, oh my gosh, you're in Boaz's field. And she sees what Boaz has done to Ruth already. It seems pretty obvious that Ruth likes Boaz. And so Naomi just goes on a full matchmaker mode and is like, okay, how can we make this happen? Right? How can we get you and Boaz together? Because remember, they are in a hopeless situation. Remember, night one, tragedy has struck this family. Her husband has died. Her 2 sons have died. I mean, it is absolute tragedy. Ruth's husband died. There's no hope for them on their own in Bethlehem, but Boaz is someone who can bring them out of that hopeless state. But Boaz is someone who can give them a future, but Boaz is someone who could actually give them a life worth living because he is a what? A redeemer. So she's going to get them hooked up. So look at what it says in verse 1. It says, then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, my daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Is not Boaz our relative with whose young women you were? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Wash, therefore, and anoint yourself, and put on your cloak and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. But when he lies down, observe the place where he lies, and then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do. So matchmaker Naomi is in full effect here. And she picks this night when Boaz is winnowing barley at the threshing floor. How many of you are like, what the heck does that mean? Anybody know? So in these fields, there was this thing that's called a threshing floor, right? And as I was looking into it, it said the best threshing floors would kind of be on hilltops, right? In a field, it might be on a hilltop that's unencumbered by trees or unencumbered by surrounding buildings or houses or whatever. And it was on a hilltop so that it could catch the best advantage of the breeze that would blow by. Because here's what would happen. You would take the grain that you harvested, you would take it to the threshing floor, and what you would do, the act of winnowing barley, was you would literally take the grain, you'd throw it up in the air, you'd allow the breeze to kind of catch the chaff or catch the useless things off of the grain, and then the useful, heavier grain would fall down to this kind of stone top where you could easily collect it and get it all together. Does that make sense? So that's what Boaz is doing in this moment. He is going to be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. And I think it's funny because we don't really know why it was Boaz who was going to be sleeping there that night and winnowing barley. We know why people would do that because remember, this is the day of the judges, right? And what was the time of judges like? It was chaos, right? And so you could have people coming to steal all your hard work. They could try to steal your grain, all this stuff. So it makes sense for someone to sleep there so that no one would come and take it, right? And kind of the weird thing about Boaz is Boaz is rich. He's got employees. Why is he the one doing it? But what does God work in? Does God work in coincidence or through providence? Providence, right? And so Boaz is there. You know why I was there? Because if you look outside yet, at night here, isn't that amazing? I would not want to sleep under the stars. Boaz I'm sitting here right? So Naomi picks this night. And she gives, your mom, has your mom ever, anyone here first date vibes, and your mom or dad gives you advice on your first date? I didn't have that. Anyone? That's not good, right? That's what she's about to tell Ruth what to do, right? So she tells her a few things. The first thing she says is to what? Don't tell her what you got to do. Bathe yourself, wash yourself, take a shower. Listen, if you want to make a move on someone, smelling good is one of the most important things you do. Some of you are like, why on earth is this girl not talking to me? Because you smell awful. Terrible. Body spray is not a good cover up for not showering. Right? It's just not. So smell better, you know what I'm saying? And so Naomi tells Ruth, hey, when you go, wash yourself. Make yourself look presentable, which again goes to last night, ladies. Why it's not bad to look. It's not bad. But here she's going to wash herself. The second thing she says to anoint yourself, right? Anoint yourself. Make sure when you go, girl, you smelling good, right? You know those people, I have a few of those people at church when I hug them and I walk up to them and they have the same perfume on every single week. And I'm like, oh, that person smells good. And do you have anybody like that? Maybe just me? It's because a lot of old ladies hug me at church, and you know what I'm saying? And I love it. I love it, and I love them. Praise the Lord for them. But I know the perfume when it's coming. You know what I'm saying? Smell good. That's what she tells her to do. And the third thing is where it gets maybe a little weird for us. She says, wash yourself, anoint yourself, and then she tells her to what in verse 4? Uncover his feet and lie down and wait for him to tell you what to do. Now, let's just be crystal clear in the room tonight, okay? I want you hear me? Let's be crystal clear. I want you to be doers of the word and not just hearers. You with me? Doers of the word, not just hearers. That's not me. That's what God's word says of us, right? Look in the book of James. We should be people who obey the word of God. But hear me out, young ladies. None of you are going to be doing this tonight, okay? None of you, if there is for some reason a crazy guy in this youth group that you're like, man, I got my eyes on him. None of y'all None of y'all are sneaking out to Williamsburg tonight, finding his cabin, sneaking in through all the trash and mess up, and say, okay, where's the sleeping bag? I'm gonna just... Is that not weird? Okay. Yeah, and I love that Catherine just said that, because some of you are like, even for the dude I would never do that, right? Feet are disgusting. They're not good. So this seems... To us, I love how Eli reminded us this morning that the Old Testament is so old, right? It is. I mean, it's written a long time ago. This seems so weird to us. It seems so odd for us. But what's happening here is a beautiful request that Ruth is making to Boaz. I love, in this context, one of the ways the Bible describes marriage in such a cool way is that the groom would cover his bride in his garment, right? Again, there's just something about, and y'all know this, right? And married people, we know this. Isn't there something about like when your spouse is not feeling great and you just come up beside them and you just wrap your arm around them? Like that's so subtle, but it's so powerful, right? But because one of the pictures in the Bible of marriage is this idea of a groom covering his bride, covering her in his protection, covering her in his provision, covering her in his leadership and all these things. So listen to what the Bible says in Ezekiel 16, verse 8. I love this beautiful passage of scripture. God is talking to his people, to the crazy Israelite people of the book of Judges and on and on and on, where the people just seem to can never do what's right. Listen to what God says to his people in Ezekiel 16, verse 8. He says, when I passed by you again and saw you, behold, you were at the age for love. And I spread the corner of my garment over you and covered your nakedness. I made a vow to you and entered into a covenant with you, declares the Lord your God, and you became mine. God is speaking to his people in this metaphor of marriage and says, look, when I came and got you, I took my garment and I covered you. So you need to hear me. Ruth is not here approaching Boaz for a one-night fling. Ruth is not here approaching Boaz to just simply date a little bit and hang out and have just one fun night together. No. She's coming humbly, and let's be honest, she's coming boldly, laying at his feet, requesting him to cover her in his garment. Does that make sense? She's asking him to cover her. So look at what happens. Ruth replied, verse 5, all that you say, I will do. Again, Ruth is just awesome. Just honoring her mother-in-law. It's incredible. And so you know what happens next if you're watching a movie, right? Like if this is the rom-com, if this is the love movie, you're watching this, you know what begins to happen, right? Michael Bublé kind of gets to play in the background. And here's what happens, right? The camera would stay on Ruth and Naomi for a second, and it'd probably be like, you know, if I'm Ruth, the camera would probably be back here, and it's like she's looking in the mirror, and Naomi's behind her, like fixing her hair. You know what I'm saying? She's fixing her hair, she's helping her anoint her, all that stuff. Then the camera would flip to Boaz, right? And y'all, Boaz is looking like more of a stud than even Jed Wooten. And he's walking. Hey, I say that as such a compliment to Jed Wooten. You college guys make me so mad. Jed Wooten, you know, you just imagine Boaz looking a little bit better than Jed, if that's even possible. And Boaz is walking out to the barley, to the winnow, or the threshing floor, right, to winnow the barley. And he maybe has like just some kind of material or some kind of a farm instrument on his shoulder. And then the camera cuts back to Ruth, right? And she's maybe going over what she's going to say to Boaz. And then it cuts back, and you know the camera angle is perfect, right? It's like kind of down on the hill looking up, and you just see Boaz's silhouette as he's just throwing grain up in the air. It is beautiful. You understand this, right? Can you envision this? Because this is a beautiful moment. It's a romantic book. You can't get around it. It's there. And the suspense this whole time is building a little bit, isn't it? Because think about this. Ruth is about to put it all out there, right? I mean, she's about to request something crazy. She's about to request something that's really big. And so as the audience, we know what she's going to request. So you can just imagine her walking over to Boaz's field, and Boaz is unexpecting of what's about to come. And as the reader and as the viewer of this, the suspense is building, because this could go either really well or this could end really awkwardly. It could end pretty poorly. And so do you feel the suspense that's kind of building in this moment? So look what the Bible says. What goes on? Verse 6. She went down to the threshing floor. She did just as her mother-in-law commanded her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. And then she came softly and uncovered his feet and lay down. And then verse 8 includes one of the most obvious statements in all of Ruth. At midnight, the man was startled and turned over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. Look, that is a rom-com right there. Yeah. I love the Bible. You know what cracked me up today? I tell y'all, the Bible is only boring if you make it boring. Okay, it's just this. Did y'all catch how funny that passage was in Judges chapter 4 today? When, it talks about that crazy chick that drives the tent peg in the dude's head? Did y'all see the verse after it said she drove it in his skull? What did the Bible say? So he died. Obviously, right? Like, I laughed so hard. I never read that. And it was like, drove the tent peg in his skull. So he died. Thanks, Bible. Like, dude, if you survive that, you are a man. Like, goodness gracious. I look at this verse right here, and I'm like, of course Boaz was startled. I mean, can you just imagine? How many of y'all are deep sleepers? Deep sleepers? Okay. Can you just imagine? Right, let's just envision this together. You ready? Can you just imagine Boaz sitting there sleeping on the threshing floor, right? And he's sleeping. And he's dreaming, probably about Ruth. And he's dreaming, right? And all of a sudden, he kind of wakes up. And you know the moments when you're like kind of awake, but not really, but enough to think? He's asleep, ready? Like, dang, my feet are cold. Right? And you got to imagine, he probably turns over, right, and looks up, and his feet are uncovered. And again, those moments when you're like half awake, not really. This is maybe my sanctified imagination, but this is kind of what I think it went like, right? Like, he rolls over, he's like, oh, my feet are uncovered. Oh, there's a woman there. Holy crap, there's a woman there, right? Like, I'm just telling you, lady, I love my wife to death. If she lays at my feet, I'm probably going to kick her. Am I right? Like, it would scare the mess out of me, right? And we don't know how close she was to Boaz, but she's laying there, and the Bible tells us, obviously, he's startled by her laying there. This is not something you find normally. Y'all been sleeping a lot of days in your life, and ladies, you never found a man walking up at your feet. I hope not. And never found a lady walking up at your feet. Yet that's what happens here, right? So you can imagine this has got to be kind of weird, like what is happening here? But look at what Ruth says. It goes from kind of funny to super intense really quick, okay? It goes from kind of funny to super into it. Look at what he says. Verse 9. He said, who are you? He didn't even recognize her, right? Who are you? And she answered, I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a what? A redeemer. Read the Bible slowly, right? Read the Bible slowly. I think we need to grapple with and just wrestle with the reality of what Ruth is asking here. Because is it marriage? Yes, it is, right? Is it redemption? Of course it is. But you know what, as I was thinking about this and just praying over this text and reading it, I think in a much deeper and real sense, you know what she's ultimately asking for? I think this will help us understand it a little bit. You ready? She's asking for salvation, isn't she? She's asking for salvation. I mean, listen, if Boaz doesn't redeem her, she's got no future. If Boaz doesn't redeem her, she's got no hope. Her and Naomi are destined to just live in whatever confines they were living in, destined to just go out in the fields and glean. Like no future, no life ahead of them, nothing. And so she's laying at his feet. And yes, she's asking for redemption. Absolutely. But we need to understand that this is a request to really be saved by him. To be saved by him, because if he doesn't intervene here, her life is going absolutely nowhere. Do you get this? Her life is going nowhere. She's just back to square one, where it's just hopeless because she's in a spot that she cannot get herself out of, and she needs Boaz to lift her up out of the spot that she can't get out of herself. Do you see that? And we know that this is kind of something the Bible talks about in salvation. I love Psalm 91, verse 1 through 4. Psalm 91 has been huge for my family because what does she ask Boaz to do? Spread your wings over your servant. Let me ask you, does Boaz have wings? No. So she's meaning something there, right? Well, look at what the psalmist describes about God. I love this. And this would have been written after Ruth, after the person of Ruth. But look at Psalm 91, 1 through 4. It says, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from deadly pestilence. And listen to this. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his, guess what? Wings, you will find refuge. That she is coming to him. And this is much more than just a marriage proposal in the way that you and I would think about it, because in the way you and I think about marriage is like, or at least in this story, it'd be like, oh, well, if Boaz can't, then maybe someone else will marry her. Maybe someone else will do this. No, in her mind, in her understanding up until this point, Boaz is the only one who can get her out of this situation. So she is coming, humbly laying at his feet, asking for him to save her. And here's what we need to get. Because I know maybe some of you are tempted to jump to verse 10, or maybe some of you already know Ruth, like you know where this is going, and I get that. But I think if we slow down and think about this, there's a lot that can happen here in this moment. Like if you're watching this unfold and you're just on the edge of your seat, like there is a lot of different options that could kind of unfold from this request. I think there's 4, maybe even more. There's 4. Number 1, you ready? What could happen right here? Number 1, he could take advantage of her. Let's just be real. He could take advantage of her. Boaz is undoubtedly probably physically stronger than Ruth. She's sitting here. No one's around. In this society, no one would have believed a woman's testimony over a man, much less a foreign woman's testimony over a man. No one would have believed that in this society, in this culture. But listen, Boaz has a free pass here if he wants it. And can I tell you what's even more kind of leans us to maybe think that this is even a possibility is you already said it, but what setting is the book of Ruth happening again? What time period? Judges. If you read through the book of Judges, as you're reading this interaction here, when you read Ruth chapter 3 against the backdrop of Judges, you know what you're almost thinking? Man, here we go again. Here we go again. It looked like Boaz was great. It looked like Ruth was great. But guess what? Ruth washed herself. She's anointed herself. And just to be totally transparent with you, that term to uncover his feet, that is used in sexual language in other parts of the Bible. It is, right? It's a sexual term in other parts of the Bible. So if you're reading this against the backdrop of Judges when everyone was doing what? Whatever they wanted. They were doing what everything was right in their own eyes. You're reading this and almost like, man, I thought Ruth and Boaz was going to be kind of a redemptive story. I thought they were going to be different, but this could go badly really, really quickly. You get that? Number 1, he could take advantage of her. He could do it. The second option that I was looking at and just reading through and thinking about was number 2, he could have mocked her. He could have mocked her. Can you imagine Boaz the next day at the local breakfast joint? Because I got to imagine Boaz had breakfast with some buddies every day. You know, I just kind of picture Boaz to be that kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? I just do. Can you imagine Boaz strolling up to breakfast and he gets there and he sits down with the table of friends and be like, yo, you can't believe what happened to me last night. I was sleeping and this chick laid at my feet. And I woke up, I was like, who are you? And it wasn't just a Jewish person. It was a Moabite woman. And this Moabite woman, and I'd seen her in my field, and I liked her, and I thought she was good. But you would never believe, this Moabite woman asked me to redeem her, and the laughter would have just started because it would have been unthinkable that a Jewish man would willingly redeem a Moabite woman. I mean, he has an opportunity here to tell her no and mock her and run her name and reputation through the mud. And everyone will laugh and be like, hey, man, that's the girl that got turned down by Boaz. That's the foreigner who thought she could approach a Jewish man and expect redemption. What a joke. She's risking that here. You know the third thing she's risking? She's risking that he could just flat out say no. Right? Isn't rejection the worst? Isn't it? Some of you have faced that a lot, right? And you can just imagine, because remember, think of all the things Boaz is going to be taking on. He's going to be taking on a wife. Married people in the room, we know marriage is no joke. He's taking on commitment. He's taking on more responsibility. He's taking on land because we're going to find out that Naomi owns some land too. He's taking on that. He's taking on some baggage. With Ruth, you said, what do you mean? She has a mother-in-law whose name was Bitter, and she's going around town telling everyone, her name was Pleasant, and she's going around town telling everyone to call her Mara, which means bitter. She sounds delightful to be around, doesn't she? Hey, you're taking her in? You're extending the family line, as Eli talked about this morning. There's cost analysis that comes with that. You're going to have kids. You got to raise them. You're going to have a family. Your life, Boaz's life, alters instantly if he says yes. Do you get that? It changes drastically if he says, yes, I will redeem you. And remember in the book of Judges, what's the last verse? Everyone was doing what was right in their own eyes. It would make perfect sense against the backdrop of Judges to have Boaz look here and say, you know what, Ruth, I think you're good looking. I like you. I like your work ethic. I love the way you treat your mother-in-law. I love your character. But I can't do this because it doesn't benefit me all that much. No is a very real possibility here. She is coming, risking all of these things. So he could take advantage of her. He could mock her. He could say no, but what's the fourth option? He could say yes. Huh? He could say yes. He could cover her in his garment. He could take her in and give her a hope and give her a future and take in all of her baggage. Can you imagine how much baggage a widowed woman would have had to carry? I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, I like Eli said this morning, I cannot imagine if something happened to Courtney. I cannot even fathom it. And I can't imagine that's something you ever get over. Ruth's still carrying that. She's carrying all her Moab. I mean, she's carrying a bunch of baggage. He could take all of that in if he just said yes. If you don't know how the story ends, can you see how you're like on the edge of your seat here wondering, what's he going to do? You feel that? Is he going to say yes? Is he going to say no? Gosh, I hope he doesn't take advantage of her. He's going to mock her. What is going to happen? Look at verse 10. Look at verse 10. Y'all ready? You ain't ready. And he said, may you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first. A lot of people say that last kindness was the first kindness he noted was how she treated her mother-in-law. He said this kindness is even greater than that. What's the kindness about it? Greater than the first, in that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter. Are you ready for these next three words? You ready? You ready? You ready? Do not fear. Oh, that's so good. Do not fear. He could be like, Ruth, I know you're scared right now because I could take advantage of you. And I know you're trembling and you're scared because this could turn really ugly for you real quick and you're risking all of your safety. But Ruth, do not fear. Ruth, I know you're coming, and as you've uncovered my feet, you are risking your reputation because I could run your name through the mud in the town tomorrow. But Ruth, do not fear. Ruth, I know that you're nervous because I might say no. And if I say no, then you still have no hope. You still have no future, and you are leaving this place just the same way you came. So I know you're fearful that I might say no, but Ruth, do not fear. And the next two words make me want to shout, and I might. You ready? Look what he says. Do not fear, I will. I will. She's wondering, will you redeem me? Will you take me in? I'm a foreigner. I got no hope. I got no future. All I got is my mother-in-law and the stuff I've gleaned from your field. She has nothing, yet she comes to her Redeemer, and her Redeemer says, do not fear, I will. Her Redeemer knew all of her baggage. He knew all of her junk. He knew all the stuff that she was bringing with her to the table, the financial responsibility, the land responsibility, how his life was going to change in an instant. He knew all of that, and yet still her Redeemer was willing. He was willing to look at this foreigner woman and say, you have no hope apart from me, and I know you're on your last leg, so I will redeem you. And listen, students, I know some of you tonight, you feel like you have too much baggage. You feel like you have too much guilt. You feel like you have too much shame. You feel like you've done too much. And I know some of you, even right now, you are calculating every reason why in your head that God would not redeem you. Justin, you don't know the stuff I've tried. You don't know the things I've done. You don't know how much porn I've watched. You don't know how much I've gossiped. You don't know how much I've smoked. You don't know how much I've done this. You don't know how much I've just been a hypocrite my whole life. You don't know this. Keep on listening, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because your Redeemer is willing. He is willing to take in all your crap, all your baggage, all of your shame, all of your pain, every poor decision you've done, every terrible decision you'll make in the future. He is willing to take it all in. He is willing. And you say, how do you know? I love this. You ready? You realize Jesus was not forced up on the cross. You realize that it was not the lashes on Jesus' back that killed his stamina, that forced him to be not able to fight back. You realize that it was not nails that hung Jesus on a tree. No one forced him up there. Listen to what he says in his word in John chapter 10, verse 18. He says, no one takes my life from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. He says, I give it willingly. No one forced him to take your sin, and yet he saw you in your sin. He saw you in your brokenness. He saw you in the moment where you were in your room and no one else in this place knows about it. He saw you when you were with those other two people and you were involved in that thing that no one else knows about, and you're shameful and you feel terrible for it and you feel like God can't forgive you. He saw all of that. And he said, I will. He said, give it to me. Give it. I know it's hard. I know you feel like you're risking a lot. I know you feel like you're risking your reputation. I know you feel like you're risking a bunch of stuff. But he says, I will. Students, my challenge for you, my encouragement to you tonight is this. The same words that Boaz spoke to Ruth. Here's my encouragement to you. Do not fear, because your Redeemer, he's willing. He's willing. And I know some of you tonight, you are fearful to come before the Lord. You are fearful to open up in small group, and it's been killing you the last 2 nights because there's stuff that you're hiding. And the enemy is tricking you to think that you can fight it on your own. You will be beaten by the devil in the dark every single time. The Bible calls us to carry one another's burdens, to be open and honest with one another. So I'm telling you tonight, students, do not fear. I know it can be hard to get honest before God. I know it can be hard to lay your life down here on this altar and say, God, I'm broken. God, I'm messed up. God, I got decisions in my life that I'm proud of. I got all that stuff. I know it's hard, but students, do not fear, because he's willing. He's willing. He's willing. Can I tell you the best news of why you don't have to fear? Because you might be like, Justin, but Lord, help me. You know, Justin, I'm too far gone. And so, what is God going to be able to do with me anyway? And I did not have this in my notes, so I'm wondering if someone's feeling this in the room. What's the point of being redeemed? Because I'm so broken, I can't be useful. What's the point of me being honest with the Lord and telling the Lord all that I've done and confessing that and repenting of that? What's the use of that? Because I'm just broken merchandise that God can't use. You know why Jesus said that he was willing to give up his life? Because you know what John chapter 10, verse 18 goes on to say? Right? He says, I have the authority to lay my life down, but guess what? I got the authority to take my life back up. I got the authority to lay it down, and so I'm going to do it, but I have the authority to raise it back up. And so your God, students, can take things in your life that you thought have killed you. He can take things in your life that you feel like has ruined you forever. And students, if Jesus got up, he can resurrect that in your life as well. He can resurrect it in your life as well. So do not fear, because he's willing. Can I tell you tonight, your youth pastor is a lust-driven hypocrite for someone in life, pride-filled person, and I'm here by the grace of God. If he was willing for me, he's willing for you. He's willing for you. And so I'm just going to shut up because I think the Lord's already working. The Lord's already stirring in some hearts. And so you can go and bow your head and close your eyes. And let's allow the Lord to continue to work in our hearts. And I'm sorry for getting excited, but that's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. Man, with every head bowed and every eye closed, I got to wonder. And I would really ask, please keep your head bowed and eyes closed. I just want to make sure it's just me and you in this moment. And how many of you say, you know what, Justin, I legitimately am fearful of bringing sin that I have in my life, shame that I have in my life, pain that no one knows about. Justin, I'm legitimately fearful. Hey, can we get the lights a little different? Thank you so much. Pain that I'm legitimately fearful to bring before the Lord because I feel like I'm too messed up. If that's you, would you raise your hand? Man, I see you. I see you. You put your hand down. Students, I'm praying for those of you who raised your hand. You don't have to fear. He's willing. He's willing. He's not surprised by your junk. He's not shocked by that thing you did last year. He's not too stressed out by the addiction. He's not freaking out over the problem. He knows. He knows. He knew when he shed his blood for you. He knew when he hung on a cross for you. And I'm just overwhelmed by how God was willing to use me and save me. In all my mess, in all the things I'm ashamed of, and yet I'm standing here as someone redeemed. And I pray, students, that you would not fear tonight. You don't need to fear because your Redeemer, He's willing. He's willing to take it all. I know very few people on the earth might be. And you've had people trash your name. You've had people reject you, but He's not. He says, come, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. He's ready to redeem you. He already has on the cross. Would you walk in it?